So we'll be working on, oh, you're here. I'll fix your attendance. Thank you. I didn't see you. We are gonna work on our lab 10, slightly different than last year. I had modified some lab because I just want to make sure we have enough equipment if we will receive some equipment from the district to be able to do other labs with switches and router, and security appliance down the line. So in this lab, I want to show you how you can configure drivers and set up your wireless network with your Kali Linux or Debian Linux. You would do this a similar set of steps if you're using Ubuntu or like Raspbian, right, on the Raspberry Pi. But Raspberry Pi hasn't, if you're doing the full desktop, you should be able to just connect. You can do the same thing in Kali, but I want to teach you guys more on the commands on what you need to do. So first, we should download Kali Linux if you haven't had the version. We are currently using version 25. Oh, I put 24 here. It should be 25.3. Right? We should download the latest version only because you don't want to run into problems down the line, especially with the driver itself. Okay. So once you download your Kali Linux, go to your downloads folder, find your downloaded folder, which is compressed. You can right click, right, show more option, and use 7-zip to extract files. Once you do that, open up VirtualBox, and we're going to add the file from the extracted folder. So you can follow the instruction. But before you start your system, right, you should try to give it 8 gig of RAM only because you do one step that turns on Airmon, but I reserved some of the stuff for another class. But you would be able to do some Airmon with it, at least get you started with Network Monitor. Okay. So make sure that we set, so once I have my Kali Linux added, so click add, go to your downloads folder, find the extracted folder, go open it up and find the blue.vbox file and click open and add that to your playlist in the VirtualBox. And then I'm going to click settings and I'm going to give it 8,000 megabyte for RAM. So under general on the motherboard, give it 8 gig. And then go to your processor tab and make sure you give it quad core. Thank you. And click OK. And then we are going to change some settings for the network down the line. But once you do that, click Start. So give it more RAM and more processor. It's going to help your system respond a little quicker. The first thing that you should always do in using Linux system is to make sure that you do an update and upgrade as possible, especially for this one, because when you're working with driver, it uses a certain version of the kernel for the OS. So we want to make sure. So the question that I got earlier is, can I use an older version of Kali Linux? You can, but when you upgrade, it's just going to take longer compared to if you, and the amount of time that you wait for the upgrade is almost the same as if you download the newer version and extract it. That will be up to you. Okay. So if you have the older version, the upgrade's going to take a few more minutes. And now I'm going to log in once I have my system booted. Do my adapter, sorry. I lost my mind. I thought I've left it up here so I can plug it in. Did someone take my adapter? Okay. So once I have logged in, you can copy and paste command on this lab because it's Kali Linux, right? So if you want, you can do so. Sorry. Me. So we're gonna do a sudo app update and sudo app upgrade. Put in the password. And you just gotta wait a few more minutes for it to run the updates and the upgrade. Bye.
For number 14, and certain cases error is something that's making it. It was not a flow.
And then it says you name our match on fail.
So take the space. Take the space off.
No space. I thought that it needs a space.
But then it gives another. But then it gives another caution message saying that you name dash R command not banned.
Yeah, that means that you are, which version are you using? 25.3?
Yeah, definitely.
I ran this. Okay, let me double check it. I'll let you know, but I had checked it this morning twice on that. That means that your header name is not matching. So I thought that there's a space. It has to be a space, no?
So right here, names, it's an empty space. This is
Yeah. I had left my adapter up here. Did someone take my adapter? Or maybe I grabbed it to show. I left it. Okay. So this process for the update and upgrade will take about 5-7 minutes or so, depending on your network speed. An extra space.
Now it's set.
You can fix it, probably.
I think, yeah, I got a double spade. And it didn't give me that command not found issue.
I'm getting some error at the end, or maybe it's not able to. Okay, let's proceed and see. I might have to, let me see. Okay, so let's talk about some of the next few steps so that way you know what you're actually doing. This particular driver, right, is for this adapter. I had to do a little bit of digging before. Even when you go to the manufacturer website and trying to download, their driver actually was deprecated. That means that it's no longer working with the newer version of Debian Linux. So Aircraft, one of the technician had put, or the developer, they had put it on to the package because some people, they might be using this to be able to launch, aircraft. So I was able to find it. So if you are buying an adapter, just make sure that it is compatible or it has driver packages. Otherwise, you have to write your own driver packages for the Linux. Likely the Debian Linux, you will see some of the common adapters that are available. Now, some of my students are like, oh, can I do this on Fedora or another version of Linux like CentOS? Just keep in mind that you don't always have developer creating driver packages for all the devices that you have, or your manufacturer might not support that version of Linux. So just keep that in mind, okay? So the biggest challenge will be installing our driver. And then once you get through that, everything else is pretty smooth. Yeah, I'm getting really slow with the updates. But anyway, so what you need is you need to install the DKMS. Basically, it's a package that you need to be able to build. Your driver is written usually in C, and then it needs to be able to compile and work with the actual OS. So that means that we either have to use DKMS or another form of package to allow us to go through the process of building the actual driver from code. You also need other libraries, right? So you can see there development for the Linux headers library. Linux headers, version of Linux header is important. That's why you should use the current version of the OS, because the drivers are written for that particular header for the kernel. So if you are using a different, like a dated operating system, it will not work. So you have to roll back to the header version. And there are ways that you can do that. Just gonna take some extra step for you to build to, like, let's say 2022 or 2023 Kali version. And then so once you have that, then you are going to pull, this is the actual driver file from the Git repository. That's step 15. And then you are going to install the needed headers for this particular driver. Remember, they code it for a specific header for the Linux kernel. So let's say that it's, version 16, and you don't have version 16, you might have version 14, and you gotta make sure that it matches. Otherwise, it doesn't work. And then, so once you have that, you are gonna use DKMS to install after the build. So, and if it doesn't work, you just gotta repeat the few steps. And then when you do that, after you install the driver, you're gonna shut it down. plug it in, and you are going to plug in your USB, add your USB to your virtual box, and then you're going to start it back up again. The reason why I have you do this in a later step is because originally, if you had set it to connect at the beginning, it's going to try to connect wirelessly, and you won't be on the wired side to be able to download your packages and the installation. Okay. So once you have that connected, you can check to see if it shows up in your USB list, and then be able to check your status. So I showed you multiple ways to do that here. You can use the NM. The NM stands for Network Manager. Basically, you're using the console with the network management. You can also use the UI, and you would be able to add it this way. So we can do it completely in the terminal. Just know that you're going to work with Linux in a server type of environment. So servers usually don't have desktop. Okay. All right, let me log in and check. We get some of the package. I think somebody grabbed my adapter. Oh, I left it somewhere. So as you know, Kali comes with a set of tools for wireless type of ethical hacking, right? Once you install an adapter successfully, what you can do is you can go through their list of tools, and you can find that by clicking on the dragon button, and you would be able to look at like some of the app or the tools that you can use. Okay. And that will be for another class, but you can also use your adapter to monitor the network, so you can run Wireshark with it, like to be able to look at it from a wireless network. And then you can also use it for like aircrack, airmon, cracking like Wi-Fi, testing. I shouldn't say testing, cracking, testing wireless network, right? Let me fix a mid attendance real quick while we wait. Okay, so let's look at Callie. Okay, I still have ways to go. Okay, so once we install driver, some of you are already ahead of this, right? You would install the driver, plug in your USB adapter for wireless, configure it. Just keep in mind that you have to shut down the system to configure the network setting. So you are going to add the USB. I have you select 2.0. You can use 3.0. but typically we use the 2.0 or higher. So you will be able to add it and just, the VirtualBox is gonna see it as Realtek. I have it typed backwards, sorry. 802.11 AC. And because most of your wireless adapter uses that particular chip made by Realtek, so you often see that the generic USB wireless adapter use like only so many type of chip. So you would be able to select Realtek, but we see from the box that it is a different brand. Okay, so generic wise, we would see that it is considered like a comparable or the same as the Realtek. And then once you have that added, you would then relog back in, check to see if your system see the adapter as USB. And you can always use LS USB for every USB devices that you plug in. And to see, we're gonna use IW config. That's basically for wireless, right? You can also use IPA, which is what you see later on. So there are multiple ways for you to check the adapter. Now, at some point, you might still see that it shows down. I believe that if you reboot your system, it's gonna convert that to up, but it should be connecting to the SSID that you have provided. Yes. You said that. Yeah, you can't because it's a .7-zip file. You have to extract it with the app. Okay. So when you get to like 30, 33, 34, I have changed up the password a little bit. I just add 1, 2, 3, 4 before the exclamation point. So if you want to connect to the wireless router so you can see. So there are multiple ways that we can connect. This is one way. You can also use IW command, but NM stands for Network Manager, right? CLI is command line interface, so you can use this. This typically works for most Linux releases. So you would be able to connect to the Wi-Fi. So you can do it this way with both the SSID and the command, or just the SSID, and then it will prompt you the password to type in. Okay.
Maybe we have to connect to a wireless output.
Now, if you configure Raspberry Pi 5 for Kali, it is slightly different. You can't just simply do it through the terminal this way. You have to go and modify the configuration file a little bit because you have to use the slimmed down version of Kali Linux if you install it on the Raspberry Pi. So it doesn't have all the full capability like the regular OS that you see on the virtual machine. So we have to do it alternative ways, right? Okay, if you are working ahead when you get to 39, you can also start Airmon, but you can also use enable is another way that you can enable. Some application you start and enable, whereas Airmon NG you can either start or enable. So that will activate it. You won't see much unless you open up the app. It basically put your adapter into a listening mode where it's gonna it's gonna monitor all the wireless communication at the wireless router that you connect to, right? So I want to demonstrate to you that you can, someone can do this, right? They can also run Wireshark And that could be out of, a VirtualBox environment on the laptop or the actual OS itself.
For the game, the games in 1, 2, 3, 4, and those. Yeah, same time. Yeah.
Hey,
Oh, yeah.
sure.
He may have connected, but he may have connected. Yes, you changed the password. One, 2, 3, 4, and 5. What? We're installing drivers, we're installing the instruction, but you see the understanding and goes up all this. Where it's needed. So it's like. My brain isn't inside the wrap, if you exactly what that is on, so part of that. You're connected through the internet, guys, all right? Check the little internet icons. Next to the wall.
We showed it to.
Yeah, next on. So yeah, you have it, so you're not screwing, so it's not, so that's not screwing up. the internet. And we're learning how to do wireless connections in the. Yeah, there's no Wi-Fi down there. Going over USB then. In this case, we're actually using Ethernet connection, so it's actually a cable connection. Those little in the back of the PC. So we can learn how to do it. Over a wireless connection with Linux. This becomes, yes, a version downloads the drivers, doesn't have to configure some system. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, once you get all the drivers in, you have to set it down. And then
Whenever I
do a little configuration on the backside.
it's on this here. Like right now.
The question,
Like
it's
this.
okay.
Yeah, it's download. I don't even know what's going on.
Okay, you can check in your terminal. So mine is complete once you have the pop-up again.
When I put this command, give me this error. Only when authenticating is Linux subscribe. With this command.
Did you update and upgrade?
Yes, yeah.
Did you install the KMS?
Yes.
And it's not able to pull your header? Did you guys say there was an extra space on 12? Or I'm sorry, on
14.
14?
RAs, backspace. For the dash.
So no space, you mean? No space? I thought there was a space. Okay.
You guys working with this?
Yeah, no, zero space. I remember fixing it this morning, space or no space, don't remember. So on this one, no space for 13 or 14. Right here, no space, okay?
Already connected.
You know,
Okay, so I finished update, upgrade. That usually take about 10 minutes or so, depending. I'm gonna install DKMS. This is an installer package. So you can copy and paste the command in. So I highlight copy and then paste selection. Put in the password. And it will take seconds for it to install. Then you need to install the libraries for the driver to build. So it needs this library, the header library. And we modified that there's no space between uname and R. Otherwise, it won't be able to detect your header file. Oops. Okay. So make sure step 14, we are going to remove the space between uname and R. And then we're gonna clone the driver code from the GitHub from Aircraft. So when you paste in that command, it simply goes out to GitHub and it's gonna download the driver code. Once that's done, we're gonna install the generic header for our Linux versions that we're using. Because the headers are used with the kernel to be able to build the driver. So, and press yes to proceed. And this will take a few seconds. And it will tell you that this is the version that you have. So 6.6, 16.8. Now, if you do this a few months from now or a year from now, the header will change because Debian Linux is quickly developed. So you would see, because when I wrote the lab for my ethical hacking class last year was I think it was like a prior version 15 or 6.15 or a prior version. So you can check the version. There are also commands that you will be able to use uname to be able to find your header information. Okay. Then we are going to, so once you pull the repository, it's going to have a folder or directory for your driver. So we're going to access that folder now. See you later. Good night. See? So once I pull the repository, it's going to download the entire folder for that driver. Now I'm accessing the folder or the directory, and then I'm going to install it there. Okay, make sure that you install it inside just follow the instruction. It tells you that you are in the folder, and then you're gonna do a DKMS install. If you want to uninstall, you can remove it, right? Just make sure you look at the file. So once you install, I'm gonna do a shutdown. And then I'm going to add the device by plugging it in. Question?
Yeah, so I tried.
You using Edge? Yeah, use Chrome. Yeah, Edge is just gonna hang up. It's blocking one of the package from coming down. So open up Chrome, just search Kali Linux download, and then go to get Kali and virtual machine.
See now.
Bye. Okay, so once I shut it down, I'm at step 19. I plugged in my wireless adapter and I'm going to change my USB settings. So make sure that I go to setting and then click on USB. And here I'm going to select 2.0, click the add on the right. And then I'm going to look for the Realtek 802.11ac. You see it on the list. It's either first or second, depending on, so on the Alienware, it shows up as Realtek 802.11ac as the first one here. Click to add that and then click OK. Okay. So that's simply allowing you to enable the USB port for your virtual machine that has the adapter plugged in. So once you do that, you are going to start your virtual machine again. Now, can I do this while it's on? You can, but in the past with the students have doing it while the VM is on, sometimes it drops the connection and the adapter stops working. So it's better that you shut it off, plug it in, configure it, and then start it back up again. Because technically USB is plug and play, so you should be able to plug it in on or off, right? But I would recommend, because it's a virtual machine, it's not a real machine, so you just want to make sure that you configure it after you plug it in when it shuts off and then start it so it's refreshed. We're gonna log back in. So after I had configured the USB adapter, plug it in, I restarted my machine and logged back in. And I'm going to do an LS USB, and you can do this for all USB devices, like I said. So open up the terminal and do LS USB, right? It would tell you whether you have a USB connected or not. So I see it, right? You should see a TP-Link Archer, the model that says on your box. So you should see that there, and we would take a screenshot. And then if you have other USB connected and enabled, you should see it on the list. So it tells you which bus of the USB that you have it connected to. And then I'm gonna do an IW-config. And IW-config is a common command for wireless. So it's gonna list all the adapter, and we would be able to see. So here's my wired, my Ethernet adapter, right? It doesn't have a wireless extension. Local, that's a loopback, right? And then my WLAN 0. So this is the adapter I just added. I just configured, right? And it tells me that I don't have any kind of network connection yet, but I will, okay? So I would see the wireless standard listed for my wireless LAN. So if you get to this point, you're successful connecting the adapter to your system and you have configured the driver. Okay, so take a screenshot, the standard that shows. Now, why is it not showing AC? It's only going to show 802.11, which is wireless, right? Earlier you saw that I see the AC on my application, my VirtualBox, but inside the Linux system, you would see it only as 802.11. And then I can do IPA. And IP, as you know, if you're using an IP command, you can look at IP addresses for your system. And if you do IPA, that's going to be all adapter. And you would see I have a loopback, right? That's a loopback IP address. I have an Ethernet adapter, which is native to your virtual machine that comes with VirtualBox for virtual machine, and you see the IP address for it. And then I just added my WLAN 0, and it's okay that it shows down, right? That's all right. Sometimes you're gonna see down, but even when you're connecting to a wireless network successfully, it might show the state as down. So you would see the third adapter, right? So it shows that there is, it's broadcast, multicast, and no carrier, the MTU, and the state is shown down, okay? And because it has the broadcast address here that will be used for broadcast, and then you have the link, which is your, we learned this, right, for your IPv6, and then also some permanent address, which is your MAC address. Okay. All right. Then we are going to use this to set it up. Okay. I'm going to tell you now that it will take the command, but it might not change the state. Maybe you have to reboot it. Okay, put in the password. And it takes it fine. And then I can do IPA again. And it would still shows as down, right? Even if I turn it back up, Linux sometimes takes a little bit to refresh, or sometimes you have to reboot so that way it changes the state of the hardware. But you would still see that it shows as red as down. Let me see if I reboot and if it changes it real quick. Give me a second. Okay, so you can try to reboot and see if it changes the state. And then I'm going to also look at a list of my available wireless network, and you can do network manager, right? Command line interface, and you can do device Wi-Fi list. Exactly like that. It's going to list your wireless access points. It's somewhat of a short lab, right? It's pretty straightforward and easy to do if you don't have any kind of hang up with virtual machine or your adapter. Okay. So once I just relog back in just to check to see. Right, it still shows us down. I think that has to do with the configuration. You have to set it a certain way. Okay, so once I will repeat this to set it back up. So it took it without any kind of error. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if it will detect. So in order for it to connect to the wireless network, it got to detect a wireless network. So we will see if it works, right? So that means I have to have Wi-Fi in order for it to see all of these, the routers, right? The routers and the access point. So my goal is to connect to this one. As you can see, we talked about how there's one that is lower band and there's one that's a higher band, right? Because I'm using an AC router. So the 40A, you would see that it would be the lower band. This is the 2.4 gigahertz. And then on the second band for the 5G, that will be for the rate, right? We talked about 1 gigabit per second. So you see that. So how can I determine? Well, look at the rate. If you are on a 2.4 gigahertz, you're definitely having throughput that's lower compared to the 5G, right? Okay. And then it also gives you the encryption information, right? The new interfaces that it gives you the signal length. Okay. And to, you know, if you have a very large network, you just have to press enter to read all of your, right? All of your wireless networks that you see. Did you need help?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think the options are needs to be attached with the uname, which is for your header file. It won't pass it as a parameter in that function, that's why. Okay. So I listed all the wireless networks, so you can do it this way. You can also use aircraft, Airmon to be able to list it. But technically, this is what you do in the OS using the network management command line interface. Okay, then take a screenshot of your available networks and you press enter key until it shows N like mine right here at the end. And what we'll do is we're going to press Control C to bring us back to the pop-up. Okay. So now you know how to find wireless networks using Debian Linux, right? After you install your adapter. So that means your adapter has to work in order to see this, okay? Because the virtual machine doesn't have the wireless capability. You added it in the prior steps. Okay, so I did 31. I'm back to my command prompt. I'm going to go ahead and find, I'm going to use the SSID for the wireless network CIS-40A, which is our class. And if you do it this way, oh, yeah, if you do it this way, it's going to try to connect to it. You can also, I might have not require a password, but you can also try it this way. So I'm going to try it this way and see. It doesn't find it with the password. So if you put in the command, right? It says the wireless network, CIS-40A warning password for this network is security is not given. Question asked. Should give you a pop-up right here, right? If your pop-up doesn't show up, just minimize your terminal. And then you're going to put in your password, which is CIS-40A 1234 exclamation point. So you're going to see on the upper right that your wireless network updates is working, right? It will take a little bit of time to get it to work, even if your wireless router is right next to you. Yeah. In your terminal, you just put in your command. I put in, so originally I tried the second option, it doesn't work. So you need to put in the MCLI device network connect. And then, so make sure if you copy and paste, sometime it doesn't translate it correctly. So make sure that your NMCLI is blue. And then, or sometimes I delete a quotation mark and retype it and that works. Because, when you copy and paste it from Word into Kali, sometimes quotation marks don't go through correctly. And then once this shows up, just minimize your terminal and see the pop-up password prompt. It should pop up a little window, but if you don't see it, it's probably behind your terminal. So how do I know if this is connected? You can also look at your wireless network. So you can use the next command. So I can show active connection. Right? And I would see that I am connected to the network, CIS-40A. If you put in the right password, right, which is CIS-40A 1234 exclamation point, then, and it tells me that I'm Wi-Fi connected, right? WLAN. Okay, perfect. So it will default to a loopback connection, my wireless connection, and my wired connection, which is what I had to start with, and I added the Wi-Fi connection with that SSID. And then you can also show your wireless LAN by looking at your device command with MCLI. Okay, so here I have a general connection and I connect it to that SSID, right? You can also see that it shows the general connection there. And it shows that this is the IP address, right? That's the router that I'm using, the IP address that I have obtained from it. So if you do a show WLAN 0, it actually gives you additional configuration information outside of just, yeah, I'll be right there. Okay. See? Oh. Goodbye, swipe bike. Oh, that means that you. Wireless. So. There you go. It's not your fault. Somehow it's not working anymore. Give me a second. Do you have a question?
T,
Uh-huh.
for some reason I try to put, yeah, step 14 in. Just-
Yeah, 14. If you remove the space in front of the R. Okay, I'll be right there.
On.
Yeah, run the last command to see if the wireless router pop back up. Did you have a question, Dina? I'll be right there for another. Password.
Their mode, because public feature run, they know. You could even to run that stop and fill thing.
Yeah.
Original error.
Yeah, like these, because you keep asking to connect to it, but yeah, it says that it was terminated on the road. Yeah, it should pop up or.
And then restart on it. And then stop on there. Oh shit. Eventually I got through it. I did death spiral. So yay.
Guys, I'm not getting your parcel from this. Excuse me.
Typing pseudo and then action. Yeah. That, when you get the line that says run as root, it means that you would put a pseudo in front of it. I'm gonna see if I skip things, but.
Cause I still.
When it's still teaching.
She said it's not a problem. It's cause it dropped.
Yeah.
So it's continuing.
Starting, we run that same command
It's like, oh.
while it's working. Yeah. We run this command,
Do it and then it kicks me.
okay? And then when it's before it pops us up, it just minimize it to see if you have a pop up. Which means that it's hidden somewhere on your desktop, and because your system is not expanding full screen.
Delete help.
Or be hiding, it's or on your taskbar. Reboot, yes,
Yeah.
reboot and restart.
Now do start command there. The pseudo airmon and the start, W line 0. Do that minute. Yeah, monitor mode it in. Now that way you can take. Yeah. Taking a picture to now. Now set it back then. Yeah. Just remove them all.
That's because that's the one has. She usually has to do. CIS-40A. No, that's fine.
Yeah, and she gets brought up.
Space between. Thank you.
Try shutting down, starting back up. Yeah.
She said we don't have to search the barriers.
Yeah.
Like, we should all follow this. Yeah, it's always.
When, yeah, start it back up. Here.
Sure, never. No, it's not.
All right, going next. All right, so looking at.
I just.
Where's
I
next?
do it, so.
There you go. Top areas.
What is this?
That's right, something you do.
Just went to 12 to 6, so those are the upgrades out that you could change.
An hour and 3 minutes.
The same,
Should work on it.
but I think we can proceed, because we just installed it. You know?
Or some courts. The Frank on day student. You have it highlighted, yeah. See where, hit enter. Oh, you had it. Hit enter. And like.
Yeah, I get the same thing. Yeah, it won't show up, but you still sense are the wireless. So work, just won't change this. Yeah, so you already did this.
Roll it up, down.
That's one of them. Still have to be good. I was having trouble downloading, compelling that Linux, and I had to do Chrome
Configure it.
in order to get it.
It won't show. But so it will still show now, but in the next step, you're gonna see that.
You have it highlighted over a before you're thinking of, you know. This is what's the able to show.
Yeah, CIS-40A, want to not do that one.
This set. Yeah.
Just press enter. So. Yeah, I changed.
It is.
Because it won't let you have short classes. Did you connect? Okay, it's just a weird way. Yeah, just the 40A. Did you reboot and then okay. Is your wireless adapter working? Is it C? It's not C. You don't see. So restart. So reboot.
It's all that straight.
And then check your adapter.
Yeah, IPv4 configuration.
What was it?
It's a down C configurations.
Right in there, just make it through the you make the install that you have the driver. So once you have the driver, you would see if it works or not, right? Yeah, look, you're fine. If you get to that point. Okay. So some of you were able to connect, right? You should be able to see the detailed configuration for your system. And again, I changed the router password only because I cannot have short password for my router. But so when you get to 33 to 32, you only need to type this in and it should pop up a password, prompt. And then you just need to type in the password, which is CIS-40A1234 exclamation point. And it's going to take a few seconds for it to load. Then you are going to check your general status and it should show that you are connected to CIS-40A. Okay, as I had shown on mine, like this. Okay. And then you should see live connection. There should be 3. And then we can also look at WLAN. Which is what I had previously done there. So it should show your wireless router IP, the IP that it gives you. It gives your Linux system, right? And then you also can run IW. So IW command is concurrent to what you see with NMCLI. So it's able to do a lot of the same thing. Oh, I didn't put the link.
Good night.
Good night. So if you use IWDEF WLAN 0 link, right, it should show the signal that you're using for that adapter. So it shows more specific information like the transfer rate. And then for the beacon, it also shows my wireless router information, right? And then we can also look at the profile of your adapter for connection, which is kind of similar to what we've seen in the prior step, right? And then after you look at the link information, then you can also do an Airmon start. You can replace also with enable instead of start. And at this point, nothing is really happening. I mean, you might see some update, but it just show monitor mode enabled. So that means that you're successfully monitoring the network with your adapter. If you want to stop it, which is the next step, right? I want to show you how you can. So take a screenshot of that, then you can stop. I think you can take off the mon. Let me double check. Yeah, so just use WLAN 0. Okay. So the modification for this step, just take off the mon. What's up?
After this command, should be like LAN of the 15.
Yeah, so Control C. Did you see the network? Yeah. Anytime that you want to stop the process, Control C is cancel. Okay, so for 40, just take up the mon for your that's sometimes you have to use the mon with aircraft. But yeah, your adapter should be just the name of your adapter. And then you can also use network management text UI. So the T stands for text UI, text base. And it looks like this, right? And you can only use your keyboard for this. So we're going to press enter to edit connection, go down to Wi-Fi, the connection, and then go right to go to edit. And it shows your configuration information for that particular wireless network. And then I go down to IPv4, so arrow key all the way down to IPv4, go right to go show. And it just has the generic information for the configuration that we're obtaining the IP address from the wireless router. It's automatic, right? There's no DNS or server information. And then I can come back to hide again. And then what you can do is you can go tap, 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 or go right or up and down all the way through to go to cancel. So I'm going to go down to cancel now. And I'm back to the original menu, go down to back. So right and then back. And then we're going to go quit. So that would take care of 43 and 44. What's up?
Wondering this part was unable to locate.
What step are you doing?
I'm on 13.
Did you install it?
I installed 12.
You did the complete command, the DKMS, get yes?
Yes.
Okay. And then for the next step, you just need to do,
But the was it real deep or?
no, so just take off the space after you name.
So the what space?
Okay. Oh, your DKMS yes.
So.
Right.
Can I have your space?
That's, then the arrow. Just like. Yeah.
Then down. Like that.
Yeah.
There you go. So I thought it was just space.
Yeah, space, yes. Y is just like, you know how it prompt you yes or no and you type in Y? Yeah, that's just it's going to fill in the parameter for that option. Okay, as I was saying, after you did the MTUI, then you can take a screenshot. And then you can do a shutdown now, and that should take care of everything. So we learned how to install driver in Debian Linux today, right? And the process in that is to get the headers to work with the upgrade. It's not CIS-40A. Oh, maybe you already connected to it. Okay, just proceed. I think you're already connected to it because Linux, it doesn't give you the same on the list if you're already connected to it. You already did that. Yeah, you already connected, so just look at your connection. Yeah, see? You see what I mean? Yeah, so it would only give you the available network if you have it connected to it. If you already connected to it, it took it off the list. That's how Linux works. They're very efficient about that. Okay, so if you, yeah, so when you did the password with it, it must have taken without prompting you, because I think you already did this command the second time. Yeah, so it automatically connected you already. Yes, just proceed. You're good.
Thanks. What if you trying to do only one thing? Make you go.
Yeah, take the space before the dash R off. You name no space dash R. Yeah.
So the other one needs space, the other one is something.
Yeah.
But no.
Okay, let me stop the video, but I will keep this up.